Hello, my name is Luis Diekman, and today I'm with the great honor to be with Professor Demi Huremovic, who is the Director of Psychiatry North Shore, to talk about alcohol use and drug abuse in the COVID-19 time. Thank you for coming, Professor.
Muito obrigado, muito prazer. Thank you for having me.
So let's go to it. So, Professor, what about the substance use, alcohol use? What are happening in this kind of scenario that we are living?
Well, great question. And as you can imagine, it really hasn't been that excellent to deal with these issues, because going through a pandemic like this is stressful. And when you face the stress, you have to cope. Some people cope by writing, some people cope by jogging, some people, play music, but a lot of people cope with something that's, let's say, drinking or drugs or any other type of abuse, and a lot of abusive situations happen. So we know, for example, that people who have been exposed to stressors of SARS had an elevated substance use incidence 3 years after the episode, and the SARS was like really short one. So a lot of people have picked up drinking as at least one of the ways to cope. So it's not their main coping mechanism, but once in a week or whatever. And a lot of people will be able to step back because most people don't go to develop alcohol use disorder or other substance use disorder. Unfortunately, many people will fall behind, and so yes, an increase in incidence in substance use is absolutely something that has been both expected and observed. And to make things worse, during the outbreak, during the worst parts of it, a lot of services that we had in place for people with existing substance use disorders and that are notoriously difficult to put in place and set up were disrupted. Methadone clinics, Alcoholics Anonymous, all these counseling centers, all of that was simply, shut down, at least for a while. And so that makes it much harder for people who have previously existing substance use disorder to maintain their sobriety. They're basically, try to stay sober, but now all of a sudden everybody around them who was sober is beginning to drink. And it's really, really difficult. They have no place to turn to. So fortunately, that is now also falling back into place, and people started their online AA meetings, not as effective as the ones in person, but that after this disruption, it's slowly going back to the level of services that we had before. Unfortunately, the need has now increased.
Perfect. It's just perfect. Professor, in your opinion, I know it's not the right topic, but when we go to the pharmacological treatment of alcohol misuse or dependence, and when do you accept that is a problem and we try to treat other ways?
So the problem is, again, once the patient meets the criteria for substance use disorder, and again, that means that continued use has to interfere with their ability to function, both at work and in their families and in society, and so on. And of course, with all the other health issues and complications that arise from that. Unfortunately, with substance use disorder, it's not a diagnosis until the patient accepts it. In other words, you and I can look at the patient and we can absolutely, and every single psychiatrist in the world can absolutely agree that this person has alcohol use problem. Nothing can be done until that person actually acknowledges that they have a problem. So one of the techniques that really works is motivational interviewing, and basically having people kind of rationalize why do they drink, and what good and bad it brings them, and then you kind of seize the opportunity when they identify some of the bad factors, that maybe it's not all good, and maybe they would want to eliminate the bad stuff and regain the good stuff that they lost thanks to alcohol or other substance use. And that is your opening to get them motivated. And then really anything that patients would be willing to try is helpful. They can try naltrexone, which is good. They can try a camprosate. They can try something more traditional like disulfiram. They can try something that is experimental, such as the use of let's say gabapentin or similar substances. All of that, topiramate, for example, anything that they are willing to try is something that we should be willing to try.
So, Professor, what about your last word about alcohol abuse and substance abuse in this COVID-19 period?
The most important thing that we can do is basically get our existing services that were disrupted by COVID-19 up and running back again. So whatever we had available, in terms of, let's say, methadone clinics or counseling or outpatient, inpatient rehab, we have to build it up or just get it up and running so that we can meet the increased demand that we are expecting to have, or we are already having. Of course, we will have to make some adjustments. For example, probably outpatient services will be preferred to inpatient services, because for inpatient, you will have to have everybody tested and to make sure that they're not COVID positive, or that everybody is vaccinated, which is not going to be easy. Even outpatient comes with a little bit of challenge of that sort. But certainly we can try and make it happen. It's important to have it up and running. Whenever you cannot meet people in person, then using the telemedicine is definitely helpful. I think in terms of opioid abuse, which is a particularly big problem in the United States, but also in other countries, it's one of the revolutionary effects that we are going to see or we are witnessing right now, is the shift from methadone maintenance to a partial agonist, which would be buprenorphine. So formulations such as Subutex and Suboxone, because those you don't have to come to the center every day to get your dose. It can be dispensed to you by a pharmacy. And I think, at least in my experience, people who had limited experience with Suboxone, buprenorphine, basically, wanted to stick with methadone because that's tried and trusted and proven. But now that after they've been forced to accept the use of Suboxone, they find that they actually like it, and a lot of their patients prefer it. So that may be one of the kind of, as I said, that this pandemic is going to change us a little bit for the worse, a little bit for the better. This may be one of the changes for the better, and that is that there's going to be more acceptance of buprenorphine and partial agonists in the use of opioid use. With regards to alcohol use, again, the same thing. You want to get the facilities up and running, services up and running, inpatient if possible, if not possible, outpatient. If that's not possible, then telemedicine. Help people set up their own Alcoholics Anonymous groups. If they don't know how, you can let them use the Zoom account of the clinic or something, or help them set it up for themselves so that they can meet regularly, they can maintain sobriety and move on with their lives. And of course, advocate and see how they can resume with their activities of daily living, and so that they can have meaningful, structured lives. That is something that definitely, because when people are idle and bored and sitting at home and have seen all the movies and all the TV shows, eventually they have to pick up something that's either drinking or drugs. Another thing that is worth mentioning for all the providers would be to screen for issues of abuse. I mean, physical, verbal, and sexual abuse, because people have been in closed quarters for so long. And again, everybody's been frustrated and had to put up with frustrations of their loved ones. And a lot of times people don't know how to deal with those stressors, so they lash out. And those who have a tendency to be abusive basically just became more abusive as their coping style. So when we are dealing with families and both children, as you mentioned at some point, and elderly, we also have to screen for physical, sexual, and verbal abuse, because sadly we can expect, or we know that also has increased.
Said but true, Professor. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado, Professor. It was a pleasure to listen to you talking about this hard thing, and hope to see you again soon in physically. Thank you,
Okay,
Professor.
absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.